welcome to today's Master Guide Training Seminar. We are going to get started here with our homework assignments. So these are the things we've been needing to be doing at home and getting checked off. We have your background check. You need to bring in your certificate and we can see that and sign it off. Okay. So the next one, there's a portion in the prerequisites where you write down what does it mean to be a master guide. We need to get that in. Some of you have already shown me that and had it signed off. Please bring that in and get it signed off. So reading the book on Adventist leadership. Brandon has had one that's been floating around. Please get that read, a little report written, so we can get that signed off. We got to get this stuff signed off because we are on an accelerated program. We want to get this done by Gillette, so let's keep going with it. The next one is reading the book Education by Ellen White. Most of you have it. If you don't, I am sure your church has a copy or two you could borrow. Let's get that done and signed off. The Encounter series, that is a longer process. I understand if no one's gotten that one done yet. It's designed to be a year-long devotional journal guide. I did it in the half amount of time because I did a little differently, but we do need to keep working on that. And once our screen goes back, okay. Finish the sanctuary honor. There was one or two things left that you had to get accomplished. Get that done, bring it in so we can sign it off. Basic staff training sign off. If you came to that or you watched it on the live stream, we need to get those signed off for you. Remember, you had to do 4 online and 4 in person. Bring those in so we can get those signed off. And your fitness tracking. You guys remember we did the fitness honor. So we need to get those fitness tracking sheets in so we can get those signed off. Okay, so that's what we have for homework. We got a few more pictures being taken here. And I get the privilege of introducing, I don't know what's going on, our guest presenter. He has been a Pathfinder leader for over 40 years in various roles, such as staff, deputy director, director, and an area coordinator. He has been a part of the Charlotte Ambassadors, Northview Guiding Arrows, and the Holland Huskies. He has been a master guide since 1995 and has been our Michigan Conference Director for the last 13 years. I would like to welcome Pastor Harris to the front.
Hey, good afternoon. How is everybody? It's good to see each one of you here. And we're going to be telling stories today, or learning to tell stories. And how many of you like a good story, right? Nobody, how many of you like a bad story? Right? And so we're going to learn how not to tell bad stories, because we've all heard them, and we'll talk a little bit about those. But so just to get a little feel of this crowd here, how many here are fairly comfortable, let's say very, very comfortable getting up and telling a children's story? Fairly comfortable, okay? How many of you, it's okay, I'll do it, but if I'll wait for somebody else to do it, to tell, okay? And then how many of you are saying, I could care less, I hope I'm never asked to get up front and tell a story? All right, so we're about one-third. And so it's good news for everybody. You will have some material here that is going to help each one, and especially those who are petrified to get up and tell a story. Well, there's some really good things that we're going to learn today. And it's really not just the techniques. The techniques really will help, because then you just have to know, well, if I do this, it'll be a good story. But then it's just about the passion of how you want to do that. Okay, so we're going to do that. You're going to be broke up into groups as well, into groups of 2. So you're going to need a practice partner. So make eye contact with your practice partner person right now. Okay, You need to find somebody that is going to be your practice partner, and two is the best. Three, it just doesn't work. So who doesn't have a partner yet? Anybody not have a partner yet? All right, you guys, hey Clark, the two of you, can you guys be a partner? Okay, you don't need to sit together right now. We'll just when we break up, and then people always freak out. But if there's somebody that doesn't have a partner, I'll be your partner, and so what if it's me, right? Because we have if you're my partner, we have a lot of fun in our little breakout times, right? So, and I know everybody go, I don't want to be with Pastor. It's just, I'm just a normal guy, right? I'm just a normal guy. I'm an old normal guy. So we're going to have some fun. And so let's pray together. Thank you, dear Lord, for this beautiful day. It's not raining on us. It's not snowing on us. But it's the Sabbath. That's why it's so beautiful. And now as we go into the storytelling seminar for Master Guide, pray that your Holy Spirit will be with us and teach us some new things. In your name I pray. Amen. I didn't pass these out. This seminar is from a series of books that I read. It was probably back in the early 90s. I like to come up with something new every 2 years. I learned how to juggle 1 year. I started to play the guitar, but I never finished the guitar. But try to learn some new skill. And I really was interested in storytelling, so I dove into it and read books from the best books that I read within the Adventist Church was Eric B. Hare, Those Juniors, and there's another one by Arthur Spalding. It's called Christian Storytelling. Those books were out of print. Eric B. Hare said, I love what Arthur Spalding teaches and what I wrote, and so he wrote another one called The Christian Storytelling Book. So it's a combination of the two, and that one's out of print too. I happen to have a copy, but you can find it as used Adventist things now and then. That's a really good book. Leela Ashton wrote a book years ago. Was at the ABC. It's called The Storytelling Art or something like that, or The Art of Storytelling, and that's out of print as well. So the Adventist Church, very small thing. The Baptist Church had quite a few on storytelling. I read a lot of things on Native American storytelling, and you just kind of have to read that with a little bit of realizing that when they talk about spirit sometimes, but their storytelling culture is so good. And then the Bible, the Jewish culture was a storytelling culture. When Adam built the altars, can you imagine that when Adam had grandkids and great-grandkids and great-great-grandkids, grandkids, that they could go out there to the altar outside of Garden Eden, and Adam can talk to them about all the stories, right? All through the ages. The Harrises are storytellers. My grandpa would tell me stories about his grandfather, so I know my ancestry. And we go all the way back to England, and who knows how true they are, because you know how stories go from generation to generation to generation. But at least I know a little bit of a culture. I know because of the storytelling that on Little Round Top, the 16th Michigan was on Little Round Top in the Battle of Gettysburg. And I know the story because it's written in our ancestry book, that how the Michigan infantry was pushed back. How do I know that? It's actually a recorded account of it, but the Harrises had told that story down through the years. So storytelling is very important to us. It's not just stories here I told a children's story right here today. It's not just that. It's Thanksgiving dinner. It's when you're hanging out with your friends, when you're sitting at a campfire, when you're just sitting in the living room and you're just telling each other's stories, right? We're built for that. We want to know each other's stories. And so So it's good to know that. Jesus knew how to tell stories. He's the best storyteller there is. This class, if we could model after Jesus, would be so good. People would come to him and say, Jesus, could you tell us what the kingdom of heaven is like? And so they're coming down here. They want, how I got it here. Can you give me 8 things that the kingdom of heaven is like? And Jesus would say, you want to know what the kingdom of heaven is like? I don't know, I just kind of imagine him looking out and seeing a farmer out there sowing, right? The kingdom of heaven is like a farmer that's casting seeds, and he puts his hand down in and he casts it out, and some fall on rocky ground. And you can hear the people, that's what most of my ground is rocky, and so he's telling these stories, and you can feel the hand go in, when he's telling the story, how he reaches in and grabs the seed. I'm weird. The more you know me, the more you know that I'm just a little touched in the head, okay? I love to go to feed stores where there's grass seed or something like that, and I can't help. I'm 61 years old, and I cannot help myself. I'm like a 7-year-old. There's some grass seed right there in a big barrel. I put my hand as far down as I possibly can. Why? Because it just feels cool. And so when Jesus is telling the parable of the sower, I can just feel the hand go in, right? And so you can understand how weird I am. But you're all weird too, because you're smiling too. I'm kind of that way too, right? And so Jesus, and he said, no, Jesus, okay, that story is good. We want to know what the kingdom of heaven is like. Oh, I misunderstood you. You want to know what the kingdom of heaven is like. The kingdom of heaven is like a traveler that was traveling along, and a robber came out and beat him on top of the head, stole all that he had. And the priest came by, and they're all listening intently. Oh, that's a good story. That's a good story, Jesus, but we want to know what the kingdom of heaven is like. Oh, I misunderstood. You want to know what the kingdom of heaven is like. And so he kneels down and he washes the feet of the disciples. Everything that Jesus saw important, he explained it by actions or by stories. Not lists. We got a list here of things, but we're going to just kind of try to blow this list up today, right? It's this picture, this big, big picture. We're all part of a story. The best story that you can tell is your story, and every one of you has a story. Jesus' story, how he's working through you. Whether you're a good storyteller or a bad storyteller, at the end of the day today, you are going to know how you can tell a good story. So let's take a peek here. There's 5 things that we're going to talk about most of the day today. The first one is a setting we can all visualize. Okay? Second one is a character we can care about, conflict, got to have actions, and you need to have a satisfying conclusion. Well, that's the most technical we're going to be, right? The rest of it's going to be stories. Little Bobby, it was a beautiful day, and he decided he wanted to go walking in his favorite place. So he walked out, and as he reached the opening of the trail, he went over to the tree, and that's where he left his walking stick. Because when he went on a walk, he always grabbed the same walking stick, and when he was done, he put it back. And so he picked it up, and as Bobby's walking along this trail, you could smell the pine needles on the ground, and the pine needles in the air, and as he walked along, his feet just kind of bounced on the trail as it was so spongy from the pine. It was just a pungent odor, right? And he could hear the leaves falling down, and he could hear the squirrel flitting around, and he looked up and he saw that squirrel that he sees most of the time. Walking along, he could smell a little bit of river water, and he heard the river as he continued to walk along. And he had his stick, and he's just walking along. Sometimes he'd walk, and he'd drag his stick back, and he'd look back, and there's like a little snake-like figure in in the trail. And he's walking, just enjoying his walk so much, just feeling the fresh air, a little bit of a breeze on his face. And then he heard the river. He heard the water rushing. And he remembered his dad saying, Bobby, don't go down by the river by yourself. The water is way too rough down by the bridge. So Bobby continues walking along. And after a bit, we see Bobby hanging over the bridge with his stick trying to reach way down to touch the water. Okay? So there's a story. I just made that up. It struck you funny, huh? Good story or bad story? Who's the main character? What's his name? Bobby, okay? What other characters did I introduce? Dad and potentially a squirrel, right? There's a potential of a squirrel there. We'll talk more about that squirrel in a little bit. The setting is what? The woods, okay? Was there any descriptive words that were used? What is some of the, raise your hand for a descriptive word, yeah. Spongy ground. Leaves are fallen. A pungent smell. You could hear the creek. Anything else? What'd you see? The stick against the tree. Anything else you see? Leaves have fallen, yeah. I've got a little hearing condition. I'm not deaf yet, but I have it, so speak up really good because I'll have to keep asking you. Squirrel, yeah, exactly. So there's all kind, and there's a bridge, so there's all kinds of things, right? Anything really descriptive? She mentioned pungent. Was there anything else descriptive? Yeah, the rushing water. Anything else? When he dragged his stick, what? Snake-like, okay, very good. All right, here we go. Where does this story take place? Where specifically? When I was telling this story, in your mind, where were you? You were at Camp Asaba, okay? Where were you? Say that again. Love Creek in Berrien Springs. What's that? Part of the North Country Trail. Fairhaven Farm in British Columbia when she was a kid. Camp Asaba. Did you have your hand up? No. Okay, you're all wrong. It was in Brooklyn, Michigan, behind my cousin and Randy and Ronnie's house. Except, guys, you are all right. Because what I did, I didn't tell you where it was. Because I'm more important to have you get into your favorite place to walk. And so I'm thinking Brooklyn, Michigan. Her favorite place when I was describing that was Fairhaven. I've never been there, but she has. Camp Asaba, I've been to Camp Asaba. I haven't been down to the creek down in Berrien Springs, right? So there's the power, isn't that the power of a story? Is you just spend enough time for them to get into the setting, to know that this is an important thing. I didn't go on and on and on and on and on about it, but I gave you enough time to get into the mode of, oh yeah, I know exactly where he is. Okay. We could go on. Okay. So what color of hair was Bobby's hair in your mind? This is red, brown. But there's no wrong answer because I didn't say brown-haired Bobby, right? And so I'm giving you your creativity to figure out what Bobby looks like. Bobby that tall? Is he this tall? Yes. Black hair. Yeah, there's no wrong answer. It's what you had visioned in your mind, okay? And so you can understand that stories are just really, really important for us to set the setting up, but not give too much details. Let them have their imagination with that. Make sense? So we had a setting we can visualize, right? A character. Why did we like Bobby? He was curious, yeah. Why else? We could relate. He's just out for a walk. He's got a cool idea of keeping his stick by that, right? It's a cool idea to do that. Again, I just made this story up, but so we like Bobby. He's just a kid. He's a kid that likes to go outside. What made this a good story? One is we like the setting. 2 is we like Bobby. And 3 is, what's the third thing we're supposed to have? We need to have a conflict. What's the conflict? So what's wrong with the river? Dad says don't go by the river. And so as soon as I said, when Dad says don't go by the river, and you're all going to say, you're all in your mind are saying, he's going to go to the river. He's going to go to the river. I bet you he's going to go to the river. And when we got to Bobby and he's hanging over that, you're going, I knew it. He is a little rascal, right? He's a little rascal. And so the last thing here is actions that speak the loudest. So the action is either he's walking, he's bouncing kind of as he's walking. There's all of those smells and all of those sounds and all of those sights and all those things. Those are action words. And we don't want to be too verbose. We just want to be able to have people, I always want to give enough time for people to get on the bus so that before I take off and start going, right? And you want to give them good information so that they want to get on the bus. Because there's nothing worse for you to take too long to develop the setting and they check you off. Man, he says, this story is not going anywhere, right? And so there's the timing is important, but it's not precise. It's just what your style is. You just want to do that. So that's it, man. That's what a story does. In the storytelling, let me just pass these out here too, Matt. Sorry. What you're getting today, you are getting the teaching how to do it, and then you have to tell 8 different stories sometime in order to get the honor. So you're not going to have the honor today. You just have to tell 8 stories. And that's easy peasy, because if you're saying, I don't know, no one ever asked me to tell the children's story, what you do is you go to your Sabbath school people and you say, you know what, hey, I just took the storytelling class. Oops, I'm not supposed to go very far. I'm a wanderer, but I've got a video that I got to stay in. You go to Sabbath school and say, hey, can I tell a mission story for the primaries? And what is that primary teacher going to say? Of course you can. I need help. I can come in and tell a character building story, or I can tell a Bible story, and so you can knock off your stories very, very quickly. And if you've told a story in the last 2 years, you just check it off here, right? Many of you probably already have. Okay, so we're going to turn the page over here to the next thing, and we're going to spend some time in the setting, all right? We're going to spend some time in the setting. And then we're going to break you into some breakouts here. We need to show instead of tell what is going on. We want to show that the main character is doing something. And you don't want to say, Bobby was a little guy who was a stealer. He was a thief. Well, I've already told you what he is. I could just tell a story and you say, that boy, is a thief. Okay, so you want to show it as opposed to tell it, right? And you want to use descriptive language. Now, I don't know what in your church. I was a pastor in one of the churches here in Bristol for a while, and I've been to many, many, many churches and heard children's stories, and some of them, also, you're cursed from here on out, because now every time you hear a children's story, you're going to be comparing. You're going to be saying, "Oh man, they didn't have a good conflict. They did not have a good conclusion." And we didn't talk about this. I didn't give you the conclusion to the Bobby story. And what we're going to do is we're going to let you, a little bit later here, tell the conclusion of the Bobby story. Okay? But descriptive language. This is what happens generally when you're telling a story. People will say, "Good morning, boys and girls. How are you today? Happy Sabbath. Are you out there? Happy Sabbath, boys and girls. Are you there?" Come on. People have said Happy Sabbath for the last 2.5 hours, these kids. You are the storyteller. You get up there and you tell the story. What you do is you say, "It was a dark." When the music's all done and all the little money is put in the little church, they're sitting there, and as you are on, you just say, "It was a dark, musty barn." And the kids will go, "No way." 4 words, and they're going, "Oh, wonder what happened in the dark, musty barn." That's all you got. Today, I can't remember the exact words I said, but it all started when I dropped the red crayon down the register. The kids are going, "No." Their eyes were like, "A red crayon and a register?" Their minds are going, right? Please don't. Good storytellers don't start off, "Good morning, boys and girls. It's so good to see you today. I'm a little bit nervous today telling this story." Just sit down then. Anyway, that's mean. But you get up and you just say, "You're not going to believe what I saw today. I was going down." Anyway, you know what I'm saying. When you say that, Brock, right, Doc? "You're not going to believe what I saw today." And if you're really good, you just sit there and you go, "You're not going to believe what I saw today." And you don't do anything. And the kids are going, "Pastor Craig, what did you see?" Anyway, you get the idea. Your first sentence needs to be, I think I give some examples. Yeah, "It was a dark, musty, creaky, abandoned barn." Man, that's it, right? And then there's the second one. "Mindy was sure she had left her red bike under the shade of Old Nelson." What's Old Nelson? And if you just kind of hold on to what Old Nelson is for a little bit, and then, is Old Nelson a barn? Is Old Nelson Dave Nelson, the area coordinator? Is Nelson a tree, or what is it, right? So you just kind of give them a little suspense with it. And so what we're going to do now is we just want to give descriptive language. What I want you to do now is with your partner, and if you're nervous, everybody's nervous right now, okay? Don't be nervous. I just want you to describe a barn, okay? I'm going to give you 1 minute. So you guys get with your partner right now. Get with your partner. And you can spread out. You can go ahead and spread out so you're not so close. And the person to my left is going to go first. And you're going to describe a barn. All right? That's all you're going to do. Describe a barn in your mind using descriptive language. Go ahead and go. quiet. You guys are so like church mice sitting here. That's good. So yeah, tell it. It's good. It's fine to make some noise with it, right? And so switch partners. Describe your barn to them. All right. Very good. Okay, so I want you to tell on your partner some of the good I just want you to what your partner told you. Give me one good description that they gave. Okay, raise your hand. Raise your hand if you're going to tell on your partner that the one does. Yeah. Dilapidated. Ooh, that's a good descriptive word. Anybody else? Moldy. Yes. Dirty. Yeah, sometimes dirty. Yes. Louder. Dusty. Yeah, good. Good description. Rickety. Say it again. An old rundown barn. Yeah, good. Okay. Anybody else? Tell on your partner. Yes. Smelly. Okay, we had it. Most of us went old. Hers was a new barn, right? Very good. What colors did you have? Anybody give colors? You had a white barn, nice. Scarlet barn, ooh, yeah. A red barn. Anybody have anything other than blue? Anybody have a blue barn? No? Any other descriptions that your partner gave? Yeah. A blue barn, okay, yeah. Cold. Muddy? Yeah, very good. You see what we've done, just spending a little bit of time, we came up with some pretty good descriptions of a barn, okay? All right, so it's really important for us to do so, to set up use descriptive words when we're setting the setting. The second thing is a character that we can care about, right? Now, we all like kids. Otherwise, we wouldn't be in Master Guide class, right? Some of you are kids. And so you can always have a pretty good story if you tell a story about a little boy or a little girl, especially if you were that little boy or if you were that little girl. It's a really good character, right? What else would be a good character to tell a story, you think? Let's say to 10-year-olds and under, if you were to tell a story, what, besides a boy or a girl, what could you tell a story of? Police officer, yeah. That's it, man. Everybody has to have a dog story in your back pocket. You always have to have a dog story, yeah. So if it's a cool animal, right? If you tell a story, yeah, you can tell a story about an aardvark. I guess it's a cool animal, right? But it has to be something we care about. Yeah, right. Ooh, you're getting pretty deep. Tell a story of the storytelling honor. Very good, yeah. Okay, so dogs are my go-to is if someone says, hey, Pastor Craig, can you tell a story today? My first one is, okay, what are my dog stories and how long ago did I tell this story? Because I've gone to so many places that I came here and I was thinking, I think I told the elevator story here last time. And so I knew that the story of Grandpa in the basement was a safe story to tell today. Dog stories. I got 3 dog stories. All of them was when my dog ran away. And so you want to have a good dog story. And you just need to have one. You need to just have a 4-minute dog story. Practice that story. So whenever someone does anybody have a children's story? Or if there's kids, oh, nobody prepared for a children's story, you say, Matt, right? Yeah. Matt, you had said that you were a little bit nervous to tell a story. Wouldn't it be great because you have this technique, Matt, and you've got a dog story that you can tell in 4 minutes? You can say, I'll tell that story. And you just get up there and tell the story. Forget what anybody else thinks, right? You just tell that story because it's a good story that you've practiced. But the best story is your story that you can tell, right? And that the person is something that we need to cry about, to cry with, we care about, that's curious. Like I really liked your description of it, that Bobby was curious is why we were interested in that. And so, and the main character can do pretty much anything. And I had someone tell a story of a computer programmer for a children's story one time. How many of you would get excited about a computer programmer story? Depending on what it is, correct? I went to school for computer programming, right? But the story, it says, is it a character that everybody can identify with? No. This little girl here, and just a little tiny little girl here in church today. I'm going to tell you a story today, boys and girls, about a computer programmer. She's going to go, I don't know what a computer programmer is in her mind. And they're going to check you out. So there has to be a character that they care about, right? And that guy's computer programmer story was one of the worst stories I've ever heard in my entire life. It was the most boring thing. I'm sitting there saying, okay. And the point is, and there was no conflict. He just was basically telling her. It wasn't a story. It was a diary. And anyway, I'm not just making that up. It's a computer programmer story. You got to remember what our audience is. We'll talk about that a little bit. It'd be appropriate for the age of the listener. There's a difference between a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, right? But if I always kind of shoot for the 10-year-old. If I have 3 10-year-olds in the place and I got a bunch of adults, I'm still going for the 10-year-old because a 10-year-old, a good story is going to hit everybody. 10 or 99, right? So what's the very first thing you need to come up with? A setting. A setting. And I want you to be thinking right now, because we're going to be giving you some time to be telling a story with your partner, okay? It's not going to be a long story. And what we're doing today, this is pretty high-level training because we're giving you, you're going to have to tell stories at the end. This is not just listen to it and go back and say, I've got the storytelling on her. No, we want you, I want you to have some good tools, and you've practiced those tools today, okay? I'm not going to get you up front here. Maybe towards the end we'll see if there's anybody that's brave that wants to come up and tell a story. But so I want you to be thinking about a setting and who's your character? Who's your main character? Now you have to have a conflict, right? What's the conflict in Bobby's story? It was down by the water. Those of you who was here for this children's story today, what was the conflict this morning's story? Turn the light, yeah. I didn't want to go into that dark basement. That's exactly right. And there was a second conflict that I could turn that light on if I wanted to, but Grandpa said don't do it because it'll help you get over your fear of the dark, right? So there's a couple conflicts. Story for you. Sally just got some brand new dress. And she got brand new tights. They still call them tights? Leggings or whatever they call them. She gets some brand new shoes. And she came down the stairs to show her mama with her nose, and she spun around. She goes, look at me, Mama. Oh, that is so pretty on you. Honey, before you go up and change your clothes, I want you to go out into the garden, take these scissors and go out into the garden. I want you to cut some flowers because we've got company coming for Sabbath dinner. So cut the flowers and bring them in. Okay, Mommy. And so little Sally, with her brand new dress, her brand new tights, and her brand new shoes, went out in the garden carrying the scissors, and she went out in the garden and she picked the best flowers and she's cutting them, very carefully cutting them. And all of a sudden, Buster the dog, who's been hunting frogs in the pond, and he comes out and he's just full of green stuff, green slime and mud, and he sees Sally, they are best friends, and so Buster is coming right after her and says, oh, Buster, come here, Buster. And she's, come on, Buster, come on. And he's just running across that field, green stuff flying off of him. And come on, Buster, come on, good boy, good boy. And he comes just racing up to Sally. And Sally says, Buster, sit. And Buster sat down. Good boy. And she patted him on the head. And she picked up the flowers and she grabbed up her scissors. And with her brand new dress and her brand new tights and her brand new shoes, she went into the house and gave the flowers to her mama. Here you go, Mama. Thank you, honey. Go up and change your clothes. Good story, bad story. How many think it's a good story? How many think it's a bad story? Why is it bad? What's that? There's no conflict. There was conflict for a little bit because what was about to happen? How many of you were expecting that dog to jump on her? How many of you were disappointed when that dog didn't jump on her? Shame on every single one of you. That little girl did exactly what her mother told her to do. She did everything her mother asked her to do. And you guys are saying, that is a horrible story. Because there's no conflict. There was potential conflict. I never thought of it before, but some of you moms, how many of you thought about the scissors with the new dress? Anybody? Yeah, there's conflict. There's conflict all over the place, right? But that little girl did exactly what we trained the kids to do. That dog was obedient. Man, it's a bad story. Why? Because it didn't have a satisfying conclusion, for one thing, and it didn't have conflict. You guys, when I got to the point where the dog was coming in, this is what your faces were. I watched it happen. You guys are going, this is not good. It's not looking good for Sally. And you're thinking what you would have done if you were a mother. And then you guys, just so sad that you were so mean to that little girl. I think Heidi liked the story. Was that what you were saying? Yeah, because the little girl did exactly what she was supposed to do. So, conflict is important. Somebody needs to be doing something wrong, disobeying a rule, and then there needs to be a satisfying conclusion to that, whether it's, Uncle Arthur stories. I'm not a big fan of Uncle Arthur's endings because Uncle Arthur always says, and you can be sure, what's your name again? Nadia. You can be sure that Nadia never talked back to her mama ever again. Well, that's ideal, but what it should be saying is, let's pray that Nadia will always ask Jesus to help her not talk back to her mama, right? Not to make that blanket statement. I always changed Uncle Arthur's wrap-ups because they just were too idealistic, right? Because some stories just don't have a good satisfying conclusion. Sometimes if they get their reward, that's satisfying enough. They got their spanking and that's it, right, or whatever. Otherwise, you guys are going to remember Bobby, but you're going to forget Sally because there's no conflict to it. They broke a household rule. And then just the thought of something, right? The conflict is just the thought of something. I collect golf ball markers, like that you mark behind the ball, or just a little piece of steel or plastic or something. I collect them. When I go to a golf course, instead of buying a shirt which costs $70, I buy a thing that costs $6 or something. And that's one of my collections I do. And I wanted a Titleist ball marker. I wanted a Titleist one. And every time I would go and see one at a store, it'd be $12, $13. I'm not going to do that for this, And one time I was in the old Kmart in Grayling before it went out of business, and there was a red. I'm not a big red hat guy, but there was a red hat that had a Titleist ball marker hanging from a little thing, and I'm thinking, oh man, that's a cool. Man, this thing's pulling my hair. Here it goes. That is a cool ball marker. I wonder how much. So I could just buy the hat, give the hat away, and have the ball marker. And $21 for that hat. The thought came into my head, well, you could just pop that ball marker off that hat. Well, you have to understand something with me. I have never stolen anything on purpose, ever. I may have ended up with somebody's pen or something, but I never stole anything. But the thought came to me in Kmart to just pull that thing off and put it in my pocket. Now the question is that a sin? The answer to that is no, because it's a temptation, right? The Lord was tempted. And this is what I said. I said, get out of here, Satan. I said it out loud. And hopefully there's nobody around. Family, get out of here now. But that's what I said. I said, get out of here, Satan. I put that hat back. And it's not a sin if you're tempted to do something, right? It's a sin if I said, that's a really good idea. If I started processing that. Yeah. Anyway. So the conflict is what? Was all in my head. All in my head. Was it a satisfying conclusion, that story? It was, because I had used Scripture to realize, no. James 1:8 in there says, it's not a sin if it's to be tempted. It's when you look at it and it becomes desirous in your heart, right? And so, to me, that's a satisfying conclusion. So again, your story you're going to tell, this is going to be like a 3-minute story just a little bit later. What's the setting? Is it your living room? Is it your bedroom? Is it outside? Is it in a boat? Where is it? Who's it about? And it's the easiest one is, if it's a story about you, if it's a story about you, you know the story. And what's the conflict? What's the conflict? Did you break something and you tried to cover it up? Did you lie? Okay. So be thinking as we go through this, right? And then, so we're going to go to number 4 here right now. And that is actions that speak the loudest. Actions. What I want you to do is I want you to stand up right now. And with your partner, and just stand up. And what I want you to do is you might have to spread out just a little bit. This is sort of like pantomime. You don't have to walk around or whatever. You can just use your hands. But I want you to describe, you're doing something, okay? You're not going to speak. You're going to describe the act of doing something. So here's, for instance, what am I doing here? Yeah. I'm putting a worm on a hook, okay? I didn't say anything. That was it, okay? So, ready? Go. You're gonna just But go ahead. Okay, good job. Yeah, so yeah, you guys practice with each other. Practice with each other. Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. All right, very good. How many of you, did everybody get a chance to practice something? Okay, good. How many of you guessed it? Okay. I saw some golfers. I saw some shooters. All right, so you go back to your seats for a minute. We'll get you back up here in a little bit. So we want actions that speak, and so actions we need to be using our senses, right? What are the five senses we have? We're going to be able to hear, see, touch, hear, taste, and smell, okay? So those are actions. You want to be able to use those things. And you don't want to say, it was really stinky. You could just say, man, when I went in, it smelled like body odor and dust. And people are saying, and that's okay. Now we'll go into my grandpa's garage. It smelled like oil seeped into cement. Now that's a good smell. Why is it a good smell? Because it's my grandpa. So you can use just that. How many of you know what oil seeped into cement smells like, right? How many of you attach that to a person? Yeah, right? And so smells can help you bridge that. So I tell a story of my grandpa is when I would hug my grandpa, I'd smell just a little hint of body odor on his flannel shirt because he was a working man. Yeah, and that's a good smell, right? Body odor on flannel shirt. Is there ever such a good thing as body odor? Well, it is if it's grandpa's, right? Or going into his shop, it smells like oil. And so I want you to, with your partner right now, I want you to describe a smell from your child, or just a smell that has good memories for you about somebody, okay? Talk about a smell that has good memories for you towards somebody. I like it, yeah. That's exactly it. All right, so what's some of your smells? Say it loud and loud. Mercury? Oh, I don't know what mercury smells like. It smells like peanut butter? Oh, there you go. Didn't know that. You a scientist? You like science? No? Okay. Any other smells? Yes? Horses. What does a horse smell like? Yeah. Okay. We all know what a horse smells like, but how do you describe a horse smell? If you can't say horse. What's that? Manure? Yeah. Any other smells? Cut wood. Yeah, very good. I like it. Yeah. Joint ointment. Oh, yeah. little bit of Ben Gay or whatever some of those newer ones they have now. Yeah. A cabin that's musty smelling, that's been shut up. Okay. Yeah. All right. Yes. Homemade bread. Yeah. Dog? Is that what you said, a dog? All right. What does a dog smell like? If you can't describe a dog, how would you describe a dog's smell? It's hard to do, isn't it? But it's a really good exercise. Like the horse smell, you said. So if you couldn't use the word horse, how would you describe a horse? It's a really good exercise for us to really get down into some really good descriptions, okay? With a dog, I just say kind of a musty dust. I'm stuck on dust, right? It's hard to describe what a dog smells like. A wet dog, yeah. I'm sorry? Ooh, it smells like dog shampoo, yeah, nice and clean. Any other smells? Campfire. Yeah. What does a campfire smell like? We all know it, but how would you describe it? Yes. Yeah. So we say campfire, we all know what it is, right? Just the smoke, you smell the smoke through the air. You know it's what? There's a campfire nearby. Okay. Good. What was yours again? Gasoline used to clean the oil off. Yeah, gasoline to clean the oil off of his hands reminded him of his grandpa. Right? Yeah. When I smell paint thinner, I think of my dad. My dad's office, he used to work in Jackson, Michigan. And when he would go into his office, you could smell paint thinner and lacquer and stuff. As before they had venting. I love that smell. I think he's got lung problems now because of it. So it just smells trigger things, right? So we want to make sure we use action words that describe things. I wrote in here, we want them to hear the hammer. Don't just say he was hammering away. Let's let them hear the sound of it. Let them feel the sweat dripping down. Let them taste the black cherry ice cream from Traverse City. Right? Okay, here's a really good. I don't know if you want to do this in your school, or in your church, and maybe it's something you do as a Pathfinder club. Back when I was a Pathfinder director, we taught this. It's pretty close to this thing. We spent almost 28 weeks teaching storytelling on Sabbath afternoons. So we meet for an hour and a half. Every kid, you didn't have to be in Pathfinder, any kid that was in Charlotte could come. So we had 15, 20 kids that came. And we did storytelling. We're teaching all of these principles. What we did was slow way down. We just spend about 45 minutes just on character building, and then they would practice it. And then they would come back and tell the stories. And by the end of 28 weeks, these kids could tell a story. Really good stories. I'm going to wrap this all up in the end with Stacy. But one of the things we do, and what time am I supposed to be done here? 5 o'clock? Okay. I'm slowing down. I love this pace because I'm normally having to race through this, so I've been able to have some pace. We would have people come up and do impromptu stories. Impromptu stories are a lot of fun. And but they're scary too if you just come up there and I would give you a topic like a quarter on the sidewalk. Tell us a story. The title is A Quarter on the Sidewalk. And because they know I need to have a conflict, I need to have a character, they would be able to tell a story in 3 minutes. And that's hard to tell a story in 3 minutes, right? But I gave this kid one time, I said, well, give me a smell of the Bible. Give me a smell of the Bible. And most people will go to what? Noah's Ark. That's the first one. That's the home run. Okay. and they're given different smells. This is my favorite smell of the Bible, and I didn't come up with it. It's a little nerdy little boy with glasses, he's a kind of a little know-it-all kid, and nobody really gave him much credit for much of anything. He just was kind of annoying. And he said, they had 5 kids up there, and they were giving me the smells. And this little guy, about 12 years old, he said, the smell of freshly cut grass when 5,000 people sat down to listen to Jesus preach. I looked at him and I'm thinking, that is an awesome smell. I love cut grass, but who would have thought that when people sat down on grass, when Jesus is teaching 5,000 people, that there'd be a smell? I just love it. That's my favorite smell of the Bible, from that little guy. I'd have never thought of that in 1,000 years, right? So we just spend some time thinking about those things. So we want actions. We need to be excited in telling the stories. You need to use hand gestures. Now, Matt, I know you said you were nervous about it, but you already have a strength. When you're telling your story, you're already using your hands. You don't even know it, right? You were describing something when you were in your partner, you were using your hands. Most other people weren't, but you were. You were using your hands. I don't know what you were describing, but it's really good, okay? So, very good, very good. I have to almost tie mine down because my hands are all over the place. I'm not even Italian, right? But you have to use hand gestures when you're telling a story. If something's big, show me what big is. Show me big, okay? Big. Show me what little is. Show me what tiny is, okay? So you want to be able to give yourself some movement. I saw a tiny little mouse. It was huge. And you could say, and it was huge. Or you could say, and it was huge. I tell you, that fish I caught was. See, I didn't even say anything, and you guys got it. You see? All I did was this, and you're going, oh man, he's trying to tell a fish story. I didn't say anything. So you get the idea. You get the idea. You can do it. Just use the hand. And if you're nervous about it, stop being nervous about it. Because telling a story like this, it was huge. It's a huge fish, biggest fish I ever saw. No, just use your hands, because you look better using your hands, unless you're going like this. No, you just natural sizing, body language. If something's quiet, you roll your shoulders and you creep down. I think I saw a little mouse in the corner. I'm stuck on mice today for some reason. But you roll your shoulders forward. It means it's quiet. If you stand back like this, it just means it's big, right? And if you're telling a story and there's some little kid on the end, you just go down and you roll your shoulders forward and you just talk really low. And if there's some kid's making disruption, it's a good story, the kid next to him is going, quiet, I'm trying to hear. Just really good. Actions speak the loudest. Okay. Here is a story. Mother was excited because we're going to be having company over for Sabbath dinner, and she was trying to remember where she had kept the jar of peaches. And she was thinking, and she could, oh, that's right. I think I must be in the pantry. So she went into the pantry. I can't look at some of you because you're laughing at me. But so she went in the pantry, and then that was up top. It was up in the top shelf. So she reached up as far as she could, and as she was trying to get it down, it fell and it crashed to the floor. It was this mess. It's a mess. That's one of the most boring stories there is. Is there conflict in it? Oh, yeah. Or you could do this without any verbiage. Okay? So I could have done that first, which is more effective, right? So if you did a combination of the two, then you've got a pretty good story. But I was pretty monotone with my story because you want to have voice fluctuation as well. I want you to talk, I want you to describe a horse with voice inflection, what a horse would do with voice inflection to your partner, okay? Just talk about a horse doing something with using voice inflection. This is I'm stretching you, so talk to your person about a horse doing something with voice inflection, or sounds, okay? Okay, good. And you don't need to be quiet, just do it, okay? Horse or a dog, or do an animal. Ooh, yeah. So give me action. Give me action. Yeah. Yeah. Nice, good job. That's good story, yeah. All right, guys. So that's a good exercise, right? I didn't hear a lot of, you guys are real quiet, which is good, but when you tell a story, we want to make sure we're out there, right? So if something's loud, you're going to go, it's loud! It was so big, and it went crashing to the floor, right? I slap my hands a lot, and Janie says, why do you slap your hands all the time? I go, I don't know. I guess I want effect, right? But, and then again, you just be real quiet. Describe something really quiet. And that's very effective. Okay? So body language plus your voice. And use a normal voice. We all have normal voices. You want to be able to go up or you want to be able to go down, right? You're going to be suspenseful. There's this one lady, she has a perfectly normal voice, and whenever she told the children's story, I'm just going, oh, is this going to be, hopefully she's learned, but she didn't. She had a normal voice, but whenever she told children's story, she went high falsetto. And if I can't do it anymore, I always kind of shoot my voice, but so the boys and girls would come down. She'd go, hi, boys and girls, I'm going to tell you a story today about a little tiny monkey. And the kids are going, what happened to Mrs. So-and-so? And she could not be any more excited. And the monkey had so much fun. He would come around and steal people's water. And the kids are going, oh. And when they're all done, you guys can go back to your seats. Thank you for being such wonderful little boys and girls. And the kids walk back to their seat just shell-shocked. And we're going, and the kids, there's just nothing. And the story may have been really good, but nobody got it because she was at the highest level the entire time. I don't know how, she had to just sleep all afternoon. That's all I can think about. But, and so, be natural. How do you dress when you tell a story? At church, you're gonna dress appropriately, right? And so you just, if it's going to be for a Pathfinder meeting, you just kind of figure out what it is. If you're going to be making a presentation, this is more presentation skills than storytelling, but they all kind of blend together, is you don't want to be underdressed from the people there. If half of them are going to be dressed in Pathfinder uniform, and I was thankful for Brandon and Matt. They said, well, we'll be in our master guide uniform. So I knew exactly, I didn't have to ask that question. And but a lot of times I'm just going to say, okay, what's people going to be wearing? I probably won't wear a tie. Is that all right? And because I try to get away with not wearing a tie, I do it. And so just kind of find out what you're gonna wear appropriately, right? You want to be modest. We always be modest in how we dress. You don't want anything that if you get a Hawaiian shirt on that's loud, it's going to take away from you. What? Why does he have that shirt? That's a weird. Unless you really need it to help tell a story, right? So you want to be mindful of your appearance with what's going on. We're going to have to hustle. What do I have? I have 1 hour left. All right, so we're doing good. Satisfying conclusion. A good storyteller starts with the finish of the story and goes back to the beginning. So if we have time for you to come up here and tell a story, and if I give you a topic, a good storyteller will say, okay, where am I going to land this thing? I'm going to teach this truth, and then you can work your way back, right? My story is going to teach obedience. That's where I'm going to land. And my conclusion is this. Okay? The Bobby story. I want you right now, in your own mind, I want you to complete the Bobby story. And it has to be in 30 seconds. Okay? So the Bobby story, we left him. He's hanging over the bridge. There's the conflict. And he's reaching way down with his stick to try to touch the water. You finish that story. Just in your mind, and I'm going to ask you to share it with me. Okay? In your mind, finish that story for a satisfying conclusion. Did you use this microphone? All right, so some of you have this conclusion. I won't have you stand up or anything. If you have a conclusion to the story, raise your hand. Okay. Actually, I think sorry. So this is the conclusion of Bobby's story.
So he's reaching over the edge of the bridge with his stick. He's on the bridge because he wanted to obey. And so that means, technically in his mind, he's not down at the edge of the river like Daddy said no. He's not touching the river himself. He's using the stick to touch the river. But he's got a problem because as he's reaching over with the stick, he wanted to keep it. And he's trying to reach, and finally he gets down and whoosh. It's too quick of a current, and the stick is going downstream, and he sees it snag down just about 15 feet down the river. It snags. And now he's got to decide, do I go down to the edge of the river and get my stick because I want to keep it or not?
Another conflict. Good job.
And Bobby decides he better not because he promised his daddy he wouldn't.
All right, good job. Give her a hand, everybody. That was good, okay? Conflict. There was conflict. Was the conclusion satisfying? Yeah, to me it was satisfying because he decided to obey, right? There was conflict because there was a temptation to go there. Okay, good. Anybody else finish that story? There's no wrong way. Come on up. Good job. Tell us who you are, where you're from, then tell the story. Finish it.
My name is Shanetta. I'm a member at Belleville Church. So Bobby is leaning over the edge of this bridge, and he has this stick, and he's reaching down so far, and he's thinking to himself, I know I shouldn't be doing this. Dad told me not to do this. And just as he gets ready to lean up, to bring himself up, he loses his balance, and then he falls in, right? So he falls in this water, he begins to panic, and he's splashing all around oh my goodness, what do I do? And then all of a sudden, Dad comes just out of the blue, and Dad to the rescue. Dad's taking off his jacket, he jumps in the water, he grabs his son. His son is like, oh, thank you, Daddy, I'm so sorry. I know I wasn't supposed to be doing it. I promise. I was trying to lean forward, and I lost my balance, and Dad is like, it's okay, son. That's it.
Okay, good job. Give her a hand. Yeah. Two different ways that story. Anybody else? We'll just do one more. Anybody want to finish that? I know you guys want to. Don't be afraid. You want to try it? Come on. I could tell in your eyes that you have a story ending. Tell me your name and
Rebecca. My name is Rebecca, and so right as Bobby reaches almost into the water with his stick, his foot suddenly slips, and then he falls into the water, a shrill down his spine. It was really, really cold, the water. And then as he went under the water, he was thinking I shouldn't have done this. And then he went down more because there was waves splashing over him, and his dad comes and he dives into the water. Yeah, he saves his son.
Nice, good job. All right, very good. Give her a hand. All right. I'm proud of you coming up. Very good job. So, there's lots of ways we can conclude things, and we just need to have a satisfying conclusion. You see, that's kind of a fun thing to do. Have a story, set it up. Here's a good one that I'd love to do is the family went to the funeral home to visit funeral director, and was that a funeral home? And Mom and Dad left, and everybody left, and the little boy was locked in the funeral home. That's not a good one. I'm just Pastor Craig, that's just not right. I told you I'm kind of touched in the head a little bit. But you could come up with some stories. That Sally story, right? The dog's coming at it, and you just let it freeze, and see how it goes. So we need to have a satisfying conclusion. And so we have to, for little guys, you can't have abstract, you know what abstract thinking is, right? It's you leave something out there and just let them come up with it. Explaining a parable or telling a parable. People can understand two sides of a parable or what a parable is by abstract thinking, understanding what a pun is. If you can understand a pun, then a play on words, then that's abstract thinking. Kids from about 11 under don't have that, and so you have to tell them what the point is, right? We need to have, every story that we tell, we need to have a little nugget of truth, and through our whole story, there's a thread of Jesus' love, of Jesus' obedience, something of the character of God in it. And at the end, when they're all done, those little kids, you can say, and that is why we need Jesus to help us when we are afraid. When I am afraid, I will trust in you. How many of you want Jesus to help you trust in them? That's the little nugget. They put it in their pocket, and they go back and sit down, right? Because you have done a good job as a storyteller. You're going to tell them what the lesson is, if they're 11 and under. And if it's older, you can just say, what lessons did you learn from that? And have them discuss it and talk. And then I'm just blown away by what teenagers can come up with. I think I know what a parable means, and they come up with it, I go, oh, that was so good, right? So we want to be able to just use who your audience is for conclusions. You don't have to spoon feed it for adults, right? And so we need to stay on track. Now, staying on track. Whew. Storytellers, some people that think they're really good storytellers, they will do this and they'll do that. And so the story of with Bobby, I could have gone like this. And as Bobby was walking down on the feet, he was walking, and the path under him was all spongy. And he looked around and he saw the squirrel. Oh, and by the way, the other day the squirrel was climbing up the tree, and it was really good at jumping from tree to tree. At this particular time, the squirrel ran, and when it tried to jump, it was slippery, and his foot slipped, and he didn't quite get the length. And as he's reaching for the tree, he's going, no! And he didn't reach the tree, and he went, bam! He hit hard on the ground, and he laid there. And then it got up, got his breath, and took off. But in the meantime, Bobby was, you know what I'm saying? I could do that, and there are people that chase squirrels, but better to say, and he saw a squirrel. And if your brain's anything like mine goes, should I tell a story about a squirrel? The answer is no, because you have a nugget of truth. You're going to stay with that. You're going to land that thing with one story, okay? Unless you've got all kinds of time, weeks, or you got 2 hours or whatever, you can build a continuous story or something like that, right? So, all right, we're going to go to the back page. We need to tell the story as opposed to reading the story, because a lot of times people will say, I am not going to be around next week. What's your name? Shiloh. Shiloh, would you be able to tell this story for children's story for me next week? And I'd give you a book. And you say, can you tell that story? And so some people will just read it, but a good storyteller, Shiloh, will not read it. You would get it, you would memorize that, or you'd figure out that story, and then you would just tell that story, right? Because we want to tell a story. I was at one of my churches that I go to on a regular basis where I live. This is what happened. He had a storybook in front of him. Good morning, boys and girls. It's really good to see you on this Sabbath day. Figured I would read to you a story that's one of my favorite stories. You guys like stories? Little Timmy was having a fun time with whatever the story was. And then, as he would read, you see the picture? And Timmy's mama called him in. Anyway, you guys get the idea. He was going, please stop. The story was good, but you don't read a story. You can read it to yourself, but tell a story. Storytellers tell stories. Unless you just have to read it because it's too long. But this is a storyteller cycle. I love this so much. I didn't come up with this. This is Eric B. Hare. And this one here, this is Eric B. Hare. You know who Eric B. Hare is? He's an old storyteller, and Pip Pip, the naughty chicken, and all of those, I think, Silver Snake, and all those stories, right? He says effective stories are told, not read. This is the storyteller's cycle. Read the story. So what are we going to do first? If you have a book, you're going to read it, and then you're going to put it down, and you're going to test your memory of what you read. And then you're going to pick it up again, and then you're going to reread the story, kind of filling it in, and then you put the book down for good, and you tell that story. Are you going to get all the details? No, you're not. But you're making that story your story, right? And you tell that story, you practice that story, and you'll have a good story, right? As opposed to, if this fella would have just told that story and told it, well, with a setting we can all visualize, he didn't need the pictures. Those kids needed the pictures because the way he was reading it was just atrociously boring, right? So that they could at least get some imagination going with it. So storytelling, you read it, you put it down and say, and you try to just remember the high points, some of the conversation, and then you reread it, filling in the gaps, then put it down and practice. That's a really good tip. No, it's not mine. Use your own words. Basically, that's the same thing. Use your own words. See and feel and tell the story in your own words. Picture the scene in your mind and tell it as you see it. This morning for the sermon, I stopped and told the story of Zacchaeus the way that I could picture it happening, right? And he's not a wee little man. Zacchaeus he wasn't that tall. But when we were kids, Zacchaeus was a wee little, and you know how tall that is? That's right there. That's not very tall. Was he really that short? No, I don't know. He was a short guy, but anyway, we need to use words. Picture the scene, put yourself in it. Use your imagination, and then those of you who are nervous about telling a story, you have to just forget that you're nervous. Just get up there and tell it. Please just get up. The Holy Spirit is going to help you get over your nervousness. You just get up there and just punch it, tell the story, and use your imagination and say, this is my story. This is how I'm going to do it, right? Speak for the characters of your story. Feel the emotions of the characters. That's what I was trying to do with Zacchaeus. That poor guy was left out, man. No one liked that guy. I don't know who it was. I think I was telling the story a little bit today. This guy says, you know what, I bet you Zacchaeus when he was a boy, he was teased, so he had to live with that all of his life, right? It's not fun to be teased. If he was a little man, he was probably a little guy, little boy. Modify the story. Have one main aim and climax. Here's a really good thing to do here. Please speak up really loud because, again, I can't hear. I want you to close your eyes. I just want you to come up with words that come into your mind. What's it like to be 7 years old? So close your eyes. And what do 7-year-olds do? Just say it nice and loud. What do 7-year-olds do? Legos. Bicycles. What's that? Loud. Dolls. Keep talking. Trees. Coloring. Singing. Role play. Jumping in every puddle. Playground. Telling the same joke over and over again. They like to talk. Fighting with their siblings. Okay, very good. Open your eyes. Can you tell a story to a 7-year-old now? Just think about things. Puddles. How you can say, and they were walking around, and there's a puddle right there, and what do you think little Sally did? Sure enough, she walked right through. Anyway, so it's a really good thing if you're just trying to if you're going to tell stories to 7-year-olds, go through that process. What's it like to be a 7-year-old? And just write all of those words down, and then some of those words you can use in your story to help describe things. Here's another one. Close your eyes. Same process, just say them out loud. What's it like to be lonely? What'd you say? Quiet? Sad. Depressed. Bored. Frightening. Sleepy. Okay, you can open your eyes. How do you feel right now? Yeah. See what happened? Just that little, we spent about 30, 40 seconds on what's it like to be lonely. And you started throwing, and everybody's very melancholy right now. Okay, we just thought about all of them. So now some of those words that you use, instead of saying she was lonely, you could just say, she was by herself and she felt very sad. I didn't even say that she was lonely, but you can just, so that exercise is really good. I did this with a group of teenagers, and one said, dark. I says, yeah, it's good. And then that same girl said, suicidal. And so, there's just a lot of words that go with lonely. So we just want to, again, so what's it like to be happy? It's all smiley again, right? But you can see what happened is when we talked about loneliness, it just all of a sudden brought it in. And so you can use that process. What's it like to be 15? What's it like to be afraid? Okay? So this is really good things to get into the emotions, to be able to use action words. You want to tell personal stories that teach, number 5. Can't be too long, can't be too short. You want them to be shorter than longer. If you go too long, you know when you lose the audience, right? So if you just go on and on and on, and you tell one story at a time. Today, or not today, it wasn't too long ago, a guy was told a story, and it was actually a pretty good story. Wrap her up, send him back with that nugget. He nailed it. But then he told another one. I says, I have one more for you. I'm going, uh-oh. And the second one just washed out his whole first one. He couldn't decide which one he wanted to tell, so he decided to tell both. And so those kids, they didn't get the blessing from either one of the stories. So just tell one story. It's hard when you don't get opportunities. Again, your opportunities to check these off. In the storytelling checklist, you need to tell an Old Testament Bible story. Well, boy, there's probably something happening in Sabbath school that you can tell a Bible story. A New Testament Bible story. You need to do a character building story. The best character building stories are the ones that are from you, right? That's a personal story. I don't understand this health and fitness story. It's just, to me, it's a ridiculous one. So just tell one that's healthy. Have them kids running or something. I don't understand the health and fitness part. A personal story, there's another story, personal. An object lesson. Is an object lesson a story? Or is it an object lesson? It's an object lesson. But as part of the requirements, you need to be able to have an object lesson. Show and tell. I brought my smart water with me today because I want to be smart. That's an object lesson. Okay? It's my fitness one. Is there? Yeah, my fitness one, yeah. Because I want to be smart, I'm going to walk and drink at the same time. I'm being facetious, but you get the idea. An object lesson is not really a story, but it's part of the requirements. And object lessons are fun, right? Object lessons are good. A nature story, again, is something about, you can get those from a lot of books. If you want a good nature story, go on to our mstheyouth.org and go up into resources. There's a fellow by the name of Dr. Atkins. Anybody ever heard of Dr. Gordon Atkins? And his whole library of all of his short stories are his nature nuggets. And so if you look at that, just copy what he said. Did you know that the platypus, whatever, and you could tell that story, right? There's lots of good examples with that, and there's lots of them. What is it? Windows of God's World, I think, is an old devotional book that had a lot of really good nature stories in it, and there's a few of them that are out there. Then an SDA pioneer story. Those are fun. The SDA pioneer story. You can pretend you're Joseph Bates or Ellen White or something like that, and that's higher level too. But you could just tell a story of Joseph Bates. You know what Joseph Bates did? He went into Jackson, Michigan. He says, I want the most honest man in town. He says, well, that would be Dan Palmer, the blacksmith, right over there. So Joseph Bates went over there. He said, I heard you're the most honest man in town. I have something to tell you. Dan Palmer pounding on there. He says, keep talking. You preach while I'm working. I'll listen to you. And Joseph Bates told the story of the second coming of Jesus Christ. And when Joseph Bates was done with his Bible, he closed it. Dan Palmer looked at him, threw his hammer down, and he said, that, my friend, is the truth. And Dan Palmer started the first church in Jackson, Michigan. Yeah, that's a Joseph Bates story. How long did that take? Maybe 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes, right? So you can find those stories. There's all kinds of just little short stories in STA Pioneers. All right. Okay, here we go. What time is it? Good. We have some time. What I want you to do is, I never have time to do this, so I'm so excited. I want you to tell the story. So here we go. This is a personal story. Well, no, it could be any story where there's a setting that you can visualize, a character that we care about. It's got to have a conflict. Needs to have actions, right? Words with action and a satisfying conclusion, okay? That's just a story. It's a story. I want you to tell your story to your partner, okay? I know that this is advanced stuff. You've only learned this today. I understand it, but do the best that you can. But I want you to practice the story, okay? I want you to practice. Even if you fail miserably, at least I want you to practice. I want you to give it a try, okay? So go at it. I'm going to give you 3 minutes for the first person to tell the story, starting, okay, nope, I'm going to give you time to come up with your story. Okay? I'm going to give you a minute to come up with your story of who it is. You've been thinking about it a little bit. I'm going to give you a minute to come up with your story. It's at the very front, the very first. Yeah, this needs to be just a story. Yeah, can't be long. And it's usually good if something happened to you that you did something wrong. That's the easiest one. Okay. All right, here we go. Starting now, you have 3 minutes to tell your story. 1 minute left in your story. All right. So, who told the story? You told it? What was her story about? Okay, so the story was that she was late to church one morning because her brother went into the pond and got his pants dirty. I like it already. Who told the story here? Okay, what was his story about? Oh, nice. Very good. So this story was, it's the settings in Africa, and he got chased by a monkey, and he ended up in the girls' bathroom. There you go. That's some good stories there, right? Okay, so let's see here. Who told the story here? Okay, what did he tell? What story did he tell? Oh, that's sad. The whole guy died. Huh? So his was they was in Africa again, and he fell in a ravine, and so yeah, lots of issues. Okay, so good. Okay, ready? Second partner, it's your turn to tell your story. All right, 3 minutes. I know it's hard to tell a 3-minute story, but. One minute. All right. Okay, so let's see here. Tell me who told us, who's the storyteller? You both did. So tell me what the story that she told. Nice and loud. So what was the problem with the syrup?
Like she was sneaking out to go take syrup.
So she was sneaking, eating syrup that she wasn't supposed to be. Okay, good. I can see the conflict with that, right? Okay, very good. Who's the storyteller here? She was the storyteller. So tell me, what did she say?
So we went to this Jake, and you go tubing down these hills. We had the bright idea of getting 5 people in a group, and we put our Pathfinder leader, Mr. Gross, in the very front, along with his wife, Mr. Gross, big guy,
Mm-hmm.
and he's a big guy,
Real close to you now.
and he's a big guy, and we went down this hill, went flying down the first hill, up the second hill, and all of a sudden we saw all these trees coming up. If the people weren't screaming going down the hill, the first hill, they were definitely screaming going towards the trees.
Very good. I like that story. Yeah.
And so I always imagine it that Mr. Gross and Mrs. Gross were fighting over who's going to be the one to hit the tree first. And Mr. Gross is, of course, bigger, so he threw his wife in the front, and she hit the tree. and this is a true story, actually. And she hit the tree and got a concussion on her head. And she ended up into the hospital. So I guess that's why Mr. Gross decided to buy her a pink helmet.
You bought her a pink helmet. Very good. I like that. Good job. Good job. Who told the story here? You did? You want to tell us what she said?
So, when
Just recapping this story. Yeah. Just tell me what she said. Just recap her story.
okay, so me had a dog, and she went to school when she was 11 years old, and she had this rope. She tied her dog to a tree that she had, like a Christmas tree, or just a tree. Okay, just a tree. And when she left for school, when she came back, her dog was gone. So me learned that, put your dog in a better cage.
Put your dog in a better cage. Well, so what was the end? Was it a good story? Was it a good ending?
That was a good ending.
What
It
was-
was
what's the ending
to
to-
pray to God when you're in trouble.
Yeah.
So I prayed to God.
Did you find the dog?
Did,
Okay,
yes,
very good.
yes, yes.
So that's a satisfying conclusion. Okay, very good. So very good. You got your dog story already, right? Very good. All right. Now, there's a lot of people that believe that stories are just something nice, right? This is something nice to tell to kill time. But Jesus valued stories at the highest level. Again, when he tried to explain the kingdom of God or what his heavenly Father was like, he told stories. Where there's a lot of people that would say, well, a story is like hitching up a little red wagon to a bunch of a team of horses, right? You get this team of horses, and then you get this little wagon. Like a story means nothing. And one fellow, as I was reading, said a story to most people is like taking a light bulb and throwing it against a brick wall, and the light bulb just shatters. It just really doesn't have the significance of story. But what we learned today is techniques that can break barriers down. Stories break barriers down. There was a boy, I was telling the story of how I was converted and how I all of a sudden discovered who Jesus was and what he did. And I'd been in the church all along, and all of a sudden a story came, and I go, oh, whoa. And it really affected my heart. And I had heard, I don't know how many sermons I'd heard in my entire life, but at that right time, the Holy Spirit used that story to convert my heart, right? And so I just really think that, you guys got to take off? Okay, we'll see you. And so that whole thing, a story breaks barriers down. And so the story brought the barrier down, and then the pastor came along and gave me a right hook where the Holy Spirit just said, you understand now, Craig? But without the story, I'm not sure that I would have got there. And Jesus understood that. He understood that. And so what these tools that we have are so powerful. We need to use them, not just because we sat in a class, but now we need to practice them, right? We need to put them into practice. Now we're gonna go real bold here. Who is game to come up here and let me give you a title of a story, and then you tell a story for about 1 minute just based on the title that I give you. Is there anybody that's brave that wants to give that a shot? Anybody? I know this is high level, and I'm not going to force anybody to do it, but I'd love to have somebody. You going to try it? Okay. I know you had confidence. Okay. So give me a number between 1 and 20. Number 4. Okay. Number 4 is, okay. So I'm going to give you 30 seconds to come up with your story, and then you're going to tell the story. It can't be real long, okay? The title of your story is A Quarter on the Sidewalk. A Quarter on the Sidewalk. You tell me when you're ready.
I'm ready.
You ready? Okay, so what is the title? It is?
A Quarter on the Sidewalk. Okay, so I'm walking down the street. I see this shiny, small circle just with all this light just glistening up at me, and I'm looking like, what is that? It's a quarter. I did notice that somebody ahead of me dropped something out of their pocket. And I thought to myself, what is it? Now that I've realized it's a quarter, do I go tell them and say, wait a minute, you just dropped this quarter. Do I return it? What do I do? But the person was so far gone, I just said, wow. So I picked up the quarter and I was like, oh, it's heads. And I was happy that I had this quarter. I'm now 25 cents richer.
Good job, good job. See how easy it is? Who wants to do it? Who's next? Levi, you want to try it? No? Okay. Matt, you want to try it? Okay. This is, I do understand this is difficult to do, so you did a good job. If we give you more time, you can come up with a longer story or whatever. So, all right. Give me a number between 1 and 20. 8.
We can change it to 9.
No, I love 8. Matt, your story title is The Runaway Wheelchair.
The runaway
The
wheelchair.
Runaway Wheelchair.
Ooh, give me a minute here.
Okay, yep. You got 30 seconds. So
30 seconds.
Just let me know.
Okay.
Good
All right.
title.
Yep. The runaway wheelchair. Well, this old man was sitting in his chair, looking at the ground, wondering what on earth was his life about. Why? Why did God create him? Why was he there? He's in a wheelchair. Why? What was the purpose? As he's sitting there looking down, he notices out of the corner of his eye, something's moving. He looks over, it's a building. He said, why is the building moving? Looks to the other side, there's another building moving. He's rolling. And what really is the worst part, he's in San Francisco. And if anybody knows anything about San Francisco, it is a hill. It is a bunch of hills. And so as he's rolling towards the water at the bottom of this hill, he starts screaming as loud as he can. But he's an old guy, so he really can't scream that loud. And as he's careening down this hill, out of control, he sees a car come across crossed the intersection, and he has no idea what he's going to do to stop. And all of a sudden, someone steps out of a shop. And it wasn't a little guy. He made me look small. He was massive. He looked up the hill, saw this old man screaming as loud as he could, rolling down the hill, and he braced himself. He was ready. And as soon as that wheelchair got to him, he caught it and slid back a little bit and stopped, and the old man just sat there and cried and cried. I can't believe you stopped me. Thank you so much. I was going to hit that car. I can't believe you did that. And the guy stood up and he said, well, I'm so glad I was able to help you. Is there anything else I can do for you? Do you need to go back up the hill? Where are you going? And the old man looks at him and says, you know, I really don't know where I'm going. God really hasn't showed me what I need to do. And the guy looks at him and he says, well, now you have a great story to go to church and tell your kids.
All right, give him a hand. That's a good story. Yeah, you just never know how a story's going to end, right? Very good. Do you want to try one? You don't have to. You want to try it? Okay, come on up. I'm going to give you a it's not going to be quite as the same, okay? This will be what I want you to do. No, I'm going to do the same. This is hard. Give me a number between 1 and 10.
10.
10. Selfish Sandy. Selfish Sandy. Okay, you think about it. What's your main character and conflict? Good? Think you got one? Okay. So say it nice and loud. What's your sermon or your story title is?
Selfish Sandy.
Yep. Okay. Tell me your story.
Sandy finds some money and she can't find anyone to return it to, and she goes to the police office, and she goes everywhere that she can think of going, and she can't find someone to return it to. So she decides, should I keep it or should I just give it to someone or just put it in the offering plate at church? And she thinks about it, and she thinks about it, and then she decides to keep the money and buy something for herself.
All right, give her a hand. Good job. Very proud of you. Very proud of you. And didn't hurt a bit, did it? It was scary, but you did it. Congratulations. Very proud of you. There's a gal, we'll wrap this up here. There's a gal that when we were part of the training for church that we spent like 20, I think it was 25 weeks or whatever it was. And what we would do is we would assign, we'd meet every 2 weeks, and I'd say, Nadia, next time, or who needs their story? And so Nadia would need an Old Testament story. So you're going to tell an Old Testament story in 2 weeks, and Clark, you're going to tell a story on a personal story or whatever it might be. And so the kids were knocking off the stories, and they were going all over the church telling stories for Sabbath school. The Sabbath school teacher, there was 20 kids looking for places to tell stories. So it was a blessing for the church at the time. And but there was one girl, her name was Stacy. And Stacy was one of those girls who I watched her on the playground. She's a leader, but in church and in groups, she was very, very reserved, and didn't have the best home life. she never really had met her dad, and her stepdad wasn't a Christian. He would come to church, but he just wasn't the nicest man. Didn't abuse the girls, but this wasn't a very kind man. And so Stacy was in this environment. And so Stacy, I just knew this girl needed to be unlocked, right? I could just see her out in the playground and with her friends of what she had. And she never would get up and tell the story. She didn't have the courage Shiloh, is that it? Yeah. Didn't have the courage that Shiloh had. With one day of training, she got up and told that story. And I said, Stace, next time I want you to get your storytelling. Next time I need you to tell a story, a personal story. And she just about almost started to cry. I said, hey, just tell your vacation. I heard you told me about what you did on the vacation. Just do it like you're talking to me, because it was a great story. Okay, so the time came, and we're all sitting. There was about 15, 20 of us, and over on this side, back in this back corner over here was Cherry, and she was one of my TLTs. That's a gal I leaned on when it came to anything, leadership-wise. Cherry was over there. I said, Stacy's telling the story. She was, oh, good. And she was a prayer. And anything that I needed, I would just say, Cherry, could you go and help with the situation in the girls' tent? And she would handle it like an adult. And she was just a TLT. And my wife was there, and I was there. And I just was praying so much for Stacy. And we had rules. When you get up and told this story, you would just use the techniques you had, and we would always applaud, when you were done. And then people would kind of just say, it was a safe environment. It was so safe that you could actually honestly critique them. I really like this, or I like this, and the kids were very kind with their critiques, and it just really helped sharpen their skills. Well, it's Stacy's turn. And so I said, we were called the Footprint Followers. That's what we were called. And so as Footprint Followers, Stacy is going to tell us a story. Stacy, come up. And she came up there, and she just was so scared. And she had been in all this training about using the hands and using the voice and making eye contact. You did really well with eye contact, by the way. And so she started a story. I'm telling a story today. It's a stupid story. And we would always say, if someone said it's a stupid story, we'd say, there's no such thing as a stupid story. And the kids recited it back to her, and it made her smile. But she stood there and says, the story is we were driving back and she's rocking back and forth because she's so nervous. Just breaking all the rules, right, of storytelling. Not looking up. She's rocking back and forth. We were driving back from Lake Michigan, and we were driving along. It was so hot in the car. We didn't have any air conditioning, and so we had the windows down. It was so hot, and then my stepdad said that we're going to stop and we could get out and go down by the water, which was really good for us. We were so hot, and so my sister and so she's just rocking back and forth, head down, and so my sister and I, we walked across the parking lot, and then we went over the sand, and we got to the water, and we took and then all of a sudden she transformed. She goes, we took our flip-flops off. I'm going, praise the Lord. We took our flip-flops off, and we hung on to them, and we stepped into the water, and we just moved our feet back and forth, and the water was just hitting our legs, and it felt so good. And she forgot that she was Stacy, nervous Stacy, because she was telling her story. And so we sat there, and we just kept wiggling our feet, and we kicked water at each other, and we were having so much fun, my sister and I standing, and we squished the sand between her toes, and then she said, have you ever done that, put sand between your toes? I look over at Cherry, and Cherry's got tears in her eyes, I've got tears in my eyes. We're going, praise the Lord, right? She's wiggling, it says we were wiggling our feet, and then my stepdad said, girls, it's time to go, we got to get going home, so come on back. He says, oh, we got to go. We need to obey Dad. And so they walked, he says, and when we were walking back, and she's walking back, right? When we were walking back to the car, the sand was sticking to the bottom of our feet. And then between the sand and the parking lot where our car was, there was a bunch of really sharp stones, big rocks. And so we're walking over them, and it was so hard on our feet. And Stacy stopped. And she said, you know, sometimes when you're in some really tough places where it hurts and you want to be back to the water where it's nice and easy and cool, sometimes you have to go through some rough spots in order to get home. And she went and sat down. And I tell this story all the time, and I can't stop crying. It's the most moving story I've ever heard in my entire life. And I sat over there, and I'm just weeping. I'm thinking, okay, come on. I look over at Cherry. She's no help. She's crying. Look at my wife. She's even worse than all of us. And normally, after the story's done, it was just a light applause. No one said a thing. No one said a thing. Finally, the little nerd boy, Derek, the boy that thought about the grass for the 5,000 people, he just simply said, that was awesome. And we're all looking, all the kids are going, yes. The Holy Spirit had used that girl to tell that story. And she started that off, this is just a stupid story. It's the most moving story I'd heard, because I knew her. The fact that she just did that, it's just so powerful. What she did is she took a light bulb, and she threw that light bulb against a brick wall. And instead of that light bulb breaking, the brick wall just came tumbling down. If she would have made a call for baptism, there'd have been people coming forward because the story had affected them. That's the power of her story. From a girl who had the know-how, but had very little confidence, and then how God used her to tell a story that has affected me for a long time. Still affects me emotionally. You know what? God can use you. It doesn't matter what your skill set is. Matt, I look at you, man. I know that I see when you're using your hands. The Lord will use every single one of you. Put it in his hands. Use these techniques. Forget yourself. Just tell the story. Because you're telling a story about the character of God, right? If you're not telling a story about the character of God, don't tell it. Don't tell the story. We always want to make sure that there's something that's good with a story, right? All right. How many are going to give it a shot? You're going to get that storytelling. You've got to tell 8 stories. Give it a shot, okay? Dear Heavenly Father, I thank you so much for this time that we've had. And we're thankful that you are the model of storytelling. Help us to spend so much time in the Bible that we can see how you did it. We got some things that we can do on paper, but help us to be able to develop our own style within this so that we can be effective in telling our story and how you are working in our life. In your name I pray. Amen. Amen. Thanks, guys. It was a lot of fun to be here with you today.
All right. Special thank you to Pastor Harris for teaching this for us. Round of applause. Okay, quick update. I had sent out the email that was to let you know about this meeting, and I also attached a really nice schedule that Jean Paul made up for us. And so please reference that for your future calendar events. Our next one is going to be January 6th. We're going to be covering the Personal Evangelism Honor. All right, thank you for coming, and have a good Sabbath.